What's going on, everyone? And welcome back to the First Look series here on YouTube, where we take that holistic and 50,000 feet perspective on all 138 FBS programs entering the 2026 college football season. Give my thoughts in terms where I rank each team, what is those notable movements, as well as my spring record prediction as things stand here when I'm recording in like early to mid-April as well, right? So very excited to get into this one here about the 93rd ranked team in the nation. And if you guys are excited as well, make sure you do a couple of favors for me. Hit that like button and then also hit that subscribe button as well if you do happen to be brand new to the channel. And with that, let's go ahead and dive into who is that 93rd ranked team in college football entering this season. And for me, it is going to, in fact, be the Utah State Aggies entering their new era of Pac-12 football, getting that invitation after being a longtime member of the Mountain West, and they will be led into this new era of Utah State football by Bronco Mendenhall, who is entering his second year with the Utah State football team. And he had a decent season with Utah State. He had a 6-7 record, was able to get them to a bowl game in his first year as the head man. And ironically enough, knows a thing or two about having success out there in the West Coast, as he once led BYU to multiple Mountain West titles in the mid 2000s, leading BYU to a 2006 and 2007 Mountain West title. And this team, while it is losing some pieces, this could be a team that you're looking at that could be an overall improved team in comparison to what they were last year, because they are certain, and they're going to certainly need that as well. Because I will don't not going to want to spoil anything in terms of the record prediction, but I will say out of the entire G6, I believe that Utah State does have the strongest strength of schedule in the entire G6. So that is going to be a tough hill to climb with a tougher schedule that they're going to work with in comparison to last year. But the good news in all of this is that they are going to come in here and they not only added multiple pieces that fascinate me as well, but they also have multiple all-conference players coming back, particularly on the defensive side of the football. Braven Hamlin comes back, who plays that safety position, and he was a third-team All-Mountain West player last year. And then Bronzo Olevo Jr. is a linebacker on this Utah State defense as well. They could be a third-team All-Conference nomination in his own right as well. So, you're looking at this defense going in, and with the addition of a James Jeanette, who comes from Virginia Tech. Yes, he hasn't played too terribly much, but former blue chip recruit, just hasn't had the chance to really showcase that talent that led him into being a blue chip recruit during the high school recruiting process. There is a world where you're looking at this defense being a very good defense for the Utah State Aggies in the 2026 football season. And I haven't even necessarily got into Harrison Taggart either, who is going to transfer in from Cal, and kind of a similar situation to James Jeanette, who we just finished talking about. Also a former four-star recruit coming from the Cal Bears. And Harrison Taggart looks for his opportunity to get more meaningful playing time. And while you're not expecting a ton out of either James Jeanette or Harrison Taggart, if they do end up being productive players, I mean, that really just rises the ceiling of this football team in particular. A football team that already has a pretty decent ceiling on the defensive side of the football. Now, with that being said, it's not perfect. They did end up losing Courage Ugo in the secondary, and that was one of their top corners. He's now going to go to UAB and probably start for the UAB Blazers, as that Alabama Birmingham football team under Alex Mortensen is looking to completely remake itself after the disaster that was the Trent Dilfer era as well. So, but overall, defensively, I think you're really looking at a football team that has some pieces in place that could be pretty good on the defensive side of football and have that opportunity to come out and really be a thorn in a lot of people's sides, particularly in the Pac-12 conference, even though they might not necessarily be seen initially as one of the better teams in the Pac-12. And part of that is I am worried about their ability to replace Braden Pagan, who does end up transferring to Utah. So going from the little brother to the big brother in that regard. And thing to note is that Utah State and Utah do play each other over the course of the regular season. So Braden Pagan will have a chance right away to play against his old team. So I know that Bronco Mendenhall's guys are going to be pretty fired up about that possibility of going up against one of their top receivers last season, but going over and joining Morgan Scully instead. Now, they did end up bringing Javon Robinson in to replace Braden Pagan, not on the same level by any means, but he was a solid player who quietly had, a lot of talk on that Georgia State wide receiver room went to Ted Hurst, but Javon Robinson wasn't a scrub by any means. He also, put in his work as well with over 600 scrimmage yards and 4 touchdowns last season on a Georgia State football team that, let's be honest, did not have very many bright spots outside of those two in particular. So the wide receiver room, I don't think is going to be much good, or at least as good as last year, but it might not be a complete disaster as well. I just think that the offensive consistency might not be there the same way as it was this year. Hence why I believe that we're looking at a good to a pretty good defensive unit in Utah State. I think that offense is going to be able to hold them back a little bit from winning a lot of games, especially now that compared to last year, your schedule is going to be significantly harder, in my opinion, which speaking of that schedule, let's go ahead and pull that up now to see what we're looking at in terms of the schedule for Utah State this upcoming season. And I wasn't lying when I said this schedule is going to be tough. I mean, particularly after the Idaho State game, they have some brutal games in there, particularly with the with the road games. Washington on the road, Utah on the road, and then Boise State, who could very well be the class of the Pac-12 in its inaugural season of its rebirth. Playing Boise State on the road is going to be a tough task. And not only do you have to play Boise State on the road relatively early on in the season, but one of the interesting quirks about the Pac-12 schedule this year is that the final game of the season is considered a flex week. So that last game that you see on Utah State's schedule, that's not fully set in stone. That could be a situation where that could change to the Pac-12 league office's liking. That's left up to them, though. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But yeah, you're looking at Utah State in this regard. They're going to have some tough games in there. And that also includes San Diego State on the road, which I think San Diego State has a good chance to play a very pivotal role in terms of who goes to the Pac-12 title game in the first year of the rebirth as well. So brutal schedule, particularly on the front end. So they're going to have to really take advantage of what we're going to see in late October into early November. And it's that 4 game stretch with Washington State, Texas State, Colorado State, and Fresno State. Those games I think are going to be really important for them to take advantage of because there is a real world there. And I think this does happen where Utah State starts out 1-4. But it's not because they're a bad football team. I think there's multiple teams in this conference that are worse than Utah State going into this year. It's just the schedule does not really break very well for them at all, which is why I do have such a low ceiling and an even lower baseline, right? Why I only have them as a 7-5 team, like even in a best case scenario, and a 2-10 for what I have for the initial baseline as of right now. Because last year, you had the opportunity to play, like the San Jose States and the Nevadas and the Wyomings of the world that were in the bottom half of the Mountain West last year. But this is a brand new conference, and you took a lot of the teams that were in the upper half of the Mountain West. Plus, you also add, Oregon State and Washington State, which were considered power conference programs as recently as a few years ago. Plus Texas State, which is coming from the Sun Belt. So maybe not the same level of competition as what we saw through the Mountain West. But with that being said, I mean, Texas State, they even have an offense that could give anybody a hard time, which I'm going to be fascinated about Texas State's offense versus Utah State's defense. I think that's going to be a sneaky good matchup there in the middle of the season. I do think they at least snag one win in conference play. I think the Colorado State game at home is a game that I think they, I would lean towards winning, but I mean, the other ones, they're going to definitely have to earn their wins. And if they can get to bowl eligibility, I think there is a real world with, again, having the toughest schedule in the G6, never mind the Pac 12, that there is a pathway for Bronco Mendenhall to possibly get consideration for Coach of the Year with how tough this schedule is going to be for them this upcoming fall. So 2-10 is what I currently have right now. It's just not a very good schedule break for Utah State this year. In the first year in the Pac-12 for this Utah State football program. Very curious to hear what you guys think, though, in terms of if I'm being a little bit too harsh on Utah State. I worry about that offensive consistency that's going to ultimately hold them back a little bit. And I don't think Utah State's defense is on the same level as maybe that Texas State offense that we talked about the other day, which is why I have Texas State having a better record than Utah State, in spite of Utah State being a little bit ahead of the Bobcats as of right now. But yeah, definitely leave me your thoughts in terms of what you think about this Utah State football team. If you think that I'm a little too high or too low, always am curious about your thoughts down in the comment section down below. And with that being said, I always appreciate the any feedback that can be provided on this series as well. First time bringing it to YouTube as well. But with that being said, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off. Hoping you guys do take that time to hit that like button and subscribe button as well with the work that's put in the background to make this happen. And for now, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone. Hoping you're all out there taking it easy and taking care, everybody.